Welcome to the Clovercast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Stephen Jones, giving you the most Celtics information in the least amount of time. You are getting an overcast of the Boston Celtics, and this is your weekly Clovercast. The Celtics are back, finally. It is just preseason, but you know we're excited. And we already had a preseason game yesterday. So let's go over that game. That was against the Charlotte Hornets here in Boston. They have a couple more games coming up. There are four preseason games altogether before we get into the regular season. The Charlotte Hornets are going to be played again towards the end of the preseason as one of our four preseason games. So we'll be seeing a lot of that team. That team is not exactly a great team. However, they just played against Boston and lost badly, which is why I'm not really too excited about the score. Jaylen Brown said after this game that don't be so excited. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to work on, a lot to improve. So we'll see. However, the game was good. It was good because the Celtics ended up winning 134 to 93. Many people getting involved, many things to talk about. Let's take a look at the box score. The top scorer for the Hornets, because I know that's what you want to hear about now on the Celtics podcast, was LaMelo Ball, of course. Didn't really do too much. He only scored 14 points in his limited time on the court. For the Boston Celtics, you had Jaylen Brown. He was the highest scorer with 24 points. He shot 3 for 5 from the three-point line, and he shot 8 for 11 altogether. Amazing. He only had one assist. I'm telling you, he was on fire. He didn't need to have the ball moving much because he was the guy creating for himself. His teammates were creating for him. It was just a beautiful game to watch. All in all, if you see the assist totals, many people getting involved. Brown only had one assist. Tatum had 3 assists. Al Horford had 4 assists. Derek White had 4 assists. Marcus Smart had 3 assists. Peyton Pritchard came in and had 5 assists. Grant Williams with 4 assists. Sam Hauser with 2 assists. J.D. Davidson with 4 assists and 1 assist for Broderick Thomas. I didn't tell you about the one guy. After all of those assists, we have Malcolm Brogdon with 9 assists. A lot of assists coming all across the board here. It was a very fun game to watch. 11 points for Brogdon. Shot 4 for 9, 2 for 6 from 3. Just his presence, his ball handling opens up the court for everybody else. And he said that he's playing with 2 of the top shooters in the world in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. So it opens up the court for him. This is going to be a fun team to watch. Only one player get multiple steals. That was Jason Tatum. Again, these guys are not playing big minutes. This is the preseason. So the most minutes played this game was 24 minutes by Malcolm Brogdon. 23 minutes for Jaylen, 22 for Jason, 22 for Smart. Nobody else played over 20. 18 minutes for Sam Hauser. He was the next guy up. Peyton Pritchard playing 18 minutes as well. Like I said, he did pretty well passing the ball around. Like I said, 5 assists. He went 2 for 6, hit a 3-pointer, 5 points. Grant Williams came in, stepped in 2 for 3 from 3. He was a really good defensive presence, only played 13 minutes as well. Fiondu Kabengele diving on the ball for loose balls, getting the Tommy point in this one, getting 10 points, 4 for 4. It was a nice and one. Very aggressive, always smiling, always has a game face on. I'm hoping that he ends up playing a lot of minutes for the team. He is going to be playing a little bit because he's got that two-way contract, so I'm excited to see him. J.D. Davidson, the other guy with a two-way contract, he shot 2 for 3 from the field, only played 6 minutes. Fiondu played 11 minutes. JD also, like I said earlier, got the 4 assists. 4 points and 4 assists is not bad. Adding in just 1 rebound. The rebounders, that's going to surprise you as well. Noah Vonleh, 9 rebounds. Next up was Jason Tatum with 6 boards. Noah Vonleh, 3 for 3. He wasn't looking the greatest on defense. Had 5 fouls, 2 turnovers. However, he was a plus 14 while he was out there. Everybody on the Celtics was a plus. This was just a dominating game. Never really in question. And I never talked about Sam Hauser. He was 5 for 6, 4 for 5 from the three-point line. Had 14 points. It was just so good to see him. You know he comes into to catch and shoot. And it's good to see how big he looks on the court, too. Maybe he can play a lot of power forward minutes next to Al Horford, or maybe even center minutes next to Jason Tatum. We'll mix them up in some small ball lineups. We'll see. I don't want to get ahead of myself. Hopefully, Fernando Cabangeli can step in instead because he's a much bigger presence. Of course, Blake Griffin is on the Celtics. Blake Griffin in green. I can't wait to see him dunking. I know he hadn't dunked in 2 years in Detroit. Everybody's talking about that. He was injured, and he only played a few games each year in Detroit. And Detroit was Detroit. They weren't the Nets when he was dunking. They weren't the Clippers when he was young and dunking. And they weren't the Boston Celtics, which is what he's going to do when he's here. But he's not going to be expected to just dunk. He has developed his game tremendously. He had an interview earlier today at practice. He suited up for the team. Yesterday, he did not play. He was not available because he was not officially signed. However, he said that Boston has always been a place where guys think it is a cool experience playing here. He played against Joe Mazzulla in college, the Boston Celtics' current head coach. In one game, he said it went to double overtime, and he didn't fail to mention that Joe scored only 5 points. The first thing he told Joe when he got here was double overtime win. They like to joke about it. This team seems to have a lot of chemistry top to bottom, which is needed for any championship team. The one thing that he is impressed with Joe, that is Blake Griffin, he is impressed about the fact that he is ready. He can just tell he's a coach. He's been there, whether it be coaching in the NCAA or whether it be how he prepared himself by being an assistant coach here in the NBA. He talked about having Brad Stevens in the front office and the young core and the foundation. Those things played a huge role in him coming to Boston. He said it's an opportunity that he couldn't pass up. He talked to Brad 2 years ago when he was in Detroit, and I guess that made a big impact on his decision to come here. He isn't going to fill a certain type of role. He knows that. He's just here to fill in the gaps when he's needed and where he is needed. That's the mindset of a veteran presence that will be very well welcomed by the team. Hopefully we can lead the league in charges this year. That's what Blake Griffin said. Gary Washburn asked him what he has done to be able to stay in the league for so long while most of his draft mates have retired already. Blake said part of it has been working on his shot since his rookie year and developing his game and using your brain. And when your level of self-awareness and humility combine, then you can sort of maximize your time in the league. The biggest surprise to me was how he thinks about his game. And the biggest thing for him is playing meaningful basketball in the playoffs and being a part of a good group. The welcoming and maturity around Boston is a different atmosphere that he's used to, and that's in a good way. He talked about his excitement for being here in Boston and playing for the Celtics. Top to bottom, every player has been excited and ready to play. He said he's ready for a heavier role while Rob comes back, if that's what they ask of him. He said Rob is a monster, a defensive anchor. And then when he left, he said, "Nice to meet you guys." He's a cool guy. He had a smile on his face. I'm excited to see what he has to bring. He is a professional veteran, even more than I thought before I heard this interview. He said it's kind of funny hearing criticism about not dunking. When he was younger, they would complain about how all he would do was dunk. And now they're complaining that he doesn't dunk at all. He said he feels good, and if he had to, he would play Wednesday. Let's see if Blake Griffin will play Wednesday. Joe Mazzulla, he said Blake Griffin has had great experience, has a good basketball mind, and has a big body he can use on both ends of the floor. We're all excited to see Blake. Whether it's just a few minutes here and there or a bigger role, I think we're all leaning towards seeing him play a bigger role in this, in the playoffs as well. I'm not so sure if his role is going to diminish or if it's going to strengthen when the playoffs come. But we want to see him play well. We don't want to see him play a lot of minutes and not do well. I don't think that's going to happen because the Celtics are just so deep. But we'll see what happens when the time comes. Joe Mazzulla said during an interview earlier today that they were going to use this preseason as a chance to take a look at their depth and what they need and where they need to grow. Obviously, that's going to play a factor in if whether or not somebody gets promoted from the G League, from the two-way contract, whether one of these training camp guys gets a two-way contract or gets promoted to a full contract, or a trade happens. A lot of possibilities, but that is yet to come. Right now, the Celtics have a lot of depth. We looked at the depth chart last week. I'm not really too worried. It looks like these guys here in Derek White, he's shooting 3 for 6, playing great defense, getting 4 assists. The ball was moving around, only 7 points, but he only played 7 minutes. I mean, shot 50%, 1 for 4 from the 3. So, you know, I'm excited to see what he can do at the shooting guard position and just how many guys on this team can pass the ball. That's why I'm not too worried about backing up Jaylen Brown, although that is obviously a question that you see when you're looking at the depth chart. You've got Marcus Smart being able to move to the shooting guard position, although Malcolm Brogdon can also play off ball and they can play together. Malcolm Brogdon saying in an interview that the team relies in Marcus Smart to run the show. So he's just fitting in where he can get in, and he's excited. He said this is the best team possibly that he's ever played for. And he remembers losing to the Celtics when he played on the Bucks, I'm sure. He's excited to come in and get many more opportunities here. In Indiana, not many opportunities because he was the guy being double teamed. It was great. He didn't have to worry about being double teamed here because Jalen and Jason were the ones being doubled. The floor was just wide open for everybody today. The shots were knocking down. The big story was the field goal percentage, 57% for Boston, 34% for the Hornets. Really, they couldn't get their shots going. Terry Rozier, 4 for 13. We miss him, but not really. LaMelo, 5 for 19. Just can't be shooting like that. PJ Washington, 1 for 7. James Bouknight, 1 for 9. How do you let these guys keep shooting? Kelly Oubre Jr., 6 for 11. That's the bright spot here. But other than Jalen McDaniels, 5 for 7. You were hoping for more. LiAngelo Ball finally getting a contract. He was 0 for 3. But now all ball players, all 3 Ball brothers are in the NBA. Overall, it was a great and exciting game. Overall, it was a great and exciting game for the Celtics to watch as their first taste of the preseason. Obviously, the record doesn't count, but just seeing the games, just seeing the guys, the new guys get on the court and play and seeing the potential for the future, it's exciting. I hope you guys are excited. Upcoming games this week, we've got 2 of them. We've got the Toronto Raptors Wednesday, October 5th at 7:30 in Boston. And then Friday, October 7th, at 7:30, the Celtics will travel to Charlotte for a rematch against the Charlotte Hornets. And we'll see if the game is the same. I'm expecting the Hornets to play a little bit better, but I'm also expecting the Celtics to play a little bit better. I'm expecting the Celtic starters to play a little less as well, so I'm not expecting too much of a difference in the next Charlotte game. Charlotte's going to want to try to play as best as they can. They want to get into the regular season strong with something good for the fans to hope for. And the best way to do that is to have your guys shooting well and playing well. They don't have to play a lot of minutes, they just have to play well. So that's something to look forward to as well. If the Hornets starters are playing really well in Friday's game, expect them not to play too much. Expect them to play less than 20 minutes. And if that happens, then we're going to see a lot of bench players. We're probably going to see a lot more than 4 minutes of LiAngelo Ball. Kai Jones played 10 minutes and 9.5, and he's probably going to see more playing time. But JT Thor as well, playing 15 minutes. He was 0 for 1, but hey, his last name's Thor. You want to see him put down a good dunk or two. Look, I love the Celtics. I want to see them play well. I want to see them dominate, but I also want to see them play against somebody. You know, like, I don't want to see them walk all over people. The Charlotte Hornets, yeah, I guess I do want to see them walk all over people, but I'd like to see a little bright spot everywhere if I can, except for if we're playing the Lakers, of course, or in certain situations, I guess it's okay. Gordon Hayward and Cody Martin, the only two players that were out because of injury for the Hornets in the last game. We'll see who plays in this next game. If Gordon Hayward is healthy enough, maybe he'll play some preseason minutes, but it's very unlikely because he's injury prone. Save him for when it counts because he is a good player. It's just he doesn't play much. And that's why we couldn't sign him for as much money he was asking for. So Charlotte it was. Toronto, however, amazing games. We'll talk about later. There were definitely some high spots in their week, in their first preseason game. But what I'm excited to see is a Celtics win, of course. I'm not really looking toward any of these guys. I used to be Fred VanVleet, but the hype is phased down. A short guy who can hit threes. We were excited to see him, but Pascal Siakam, you should have grew by now, in my opinion. You're getting a little older to not be growing and increasing as much as the hype says that you should be. But not to say he's a wash. Still somebody you got to put a body on. Scotty Barnes is the guy to look for, though. I'm actually also looking for Juancho Hernan-Gomez, but just because he used to play in Boston and just for a little bit, just for a few games, I'm not really expecting him to do too much, but it would be nice to see. As far as Boston's strategy, I mean, you got to play your game. There's not much to it. Matchups-wise, they're going to look at the matchups. They're going to see who they're going to put on Tatum and who they're going to put on Brown. And whoever else is being, guarding Malcolm or Marcus Smart or Al Horford, they're going to find the mismatches. They're going to make Toronto run a lot. And they're going to put up a lot of points. Toronto's always a scary team to play because they're a team that could make the playoffs. They're a team that could win a playoff series. The East is really stacked this year, so I don't see Charlotte making the playoffs. I'm still excited to see them smash Charlotte. I'm still excited to see them play on Friday because I'm excited to see some of the younger guys and see what they can do, especially against some of the Charlotte Hornets starters, if that's a possibility. Hopefully we end the preseason off 4-0. I can see it happening. For that to happen, we would have to beat the one other team that we're not going to talk about this week. We'll save that for next week. All right, I'll give it away. It's the Toronto Raptors. We can beat them twice. I think we can beat them twice. That's not until October 14th, so there's a lot of time between those two games. Seeing the same team back-to-back helps you learn adjustments. And that's what Joe Mazzulla talked about, the learning process and just always learning. Joe Mazzulla definitely in a position to learn, but it's great to see how much he's already learned and how everybody says he's so ready to coach this team. I don't think that The same sentiment goes to what was said about Steve Nash when he was there. Like Nash said, they don't even need a head coach in Brooklyn. And you can definitely see that they need a head coach. So I'm excited to see what this team can bring. As far as some upcoming trades, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure we need a trade unless we see something absolutely amazing from somebody at the end of our roster that we could make room for, just so that we don't let him go to another team. I don't think that's going to happen. All right, around the NBA in 1 minute, Ben Simmons is expected to play in today's game finally against his former team, the Philadelphia 76ers. The Phoenix Suns lost to the Adelaide 36ers. They're a pro team out of Australia and apparently not even one of the top teams there. All of the Suns starters played exactly 22 minutes each, and it is just a preseason game. But there are thoughts about how small the gap is now between the NBA and the Australian League. I still think there's a big gap. You don't play your starters and you're playing all of your guys from the training camp roster. Your other guys on the 36ers are all playing the top of their game and they're playing their starters. It's still impressive. And I don't know what's happening in Phoenix. The Rockets beat the Spurs 134-96 yesterday with a third overall pick scoring 21 points and 8 rebounds, while their 17th overall pick, Tari Eason, scored 21 points, 10 rebounds. Their third overall pick was Jabari Smith Jr. How did I not say that? The future is bright there. The Raptors beat the Jazz 114-82 yesterday. Toronto's high scorer had only 11 points. Everyone getting involved there. And Kelly Olynyk, the former Celtic, went 0 for 7 for the Jazz. That's it for your NBA Minute, brought to you by FanDuel. And that's all the information we have for you today in our weekly episode of the Clovercast. I am your host, Stephen Jones, and I will catch you next time, next Monday, after the next 2 games for the Boston Celtics. Unless I see you midweek, maybe or maybe not, for Clover time.